On today's episode of Tuesday Talks at Opie, I sit down with model Jocelyn Cattley as we chat and reflect on how our experiences shape our lives, finding and creating your own lane, and what it means to be successful. Join us for today's conversation. And welcome to another episode of Tuesday Talks with Opie. I'm joined by my beautiful guest today, Jocelyn Cattley, a model out of San Francisco area, signed with Scout Model Agency. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. A pleasure to be here.
Thank you again for coming into the show. I am so grateful to have you here. But before we even dive into the question, I want to know, how many push-ups did you have to do as a kid growing up in a military family?
So surprisingly enough, zero. We played outside all the time, and our push-ups were climbing trees. We just climbed trees all the time.
But you were just like an outdoor. So did you have like an outdoorsy family? You guys were always out and about?
Yes. So myself and three of my siblings, we just played outside in our, we have a couple acres in our pond. So we just always were running around digging. We did dig trenches and like dig foxholes. So there definitely was that sort of indoctrination growing up for sure. But yeah, that was our workout.
So as you may have guessed, Jocelyn does come from a military background. And a military background. Did you have to move around a lot with your father being in the military?
So that's actually a surprising thing that we did not have to go through, is because my dad went into the reserves shortly after my sister was born, and we settled in Michigan. And so he did his reserve, transfers and stuff like that in the base in Michigan, and we just kind of settled there a lot. We did travel quite frequently because we were homeschooled, but it was a different reason.
Oh, you were homeschooled. How was that experience? Like, how do you, I'm not very familiar with homeschooling in general. Yeah. So how did traveling was part of your schooling?
In a way, we kind of brought that into the schooling in general, where we did like a 2-week road trip to out west, or we did a Grand Canyon trip, or, we were able to travel a lot just with dad's points and things like that. So we kind of took our schooling with us.
Right.
Which was a lot
hands-on learning.
Exactly. Hands-on learning. So my classmates were my siblings.
Speaking of your siblings, all of them actually graduated from West Point and also served in the military, but you did not. Why was that? Why didn't you go the route that your siblings did?
It's an interesting question. There's multiple layers to that one, actually. So medically, I couldn't.
Okay.
Yeah, so medically I couldn't, but in the same way, that also fueled a very competitive nature within me to be like, well, all three of my siblings and my dad were highly successful in this category. So right. How do I make myself unique and successful in my own category? And thus the story of Jocelyn Cattley is written.
And one of an interesting story at that. You are a flight attendant, as long as, also with being a model, but that being a flight attendant is also something that comes from your family history too. You have someone in your family that also went along that route. Is that what inspired you to go, to be a flight attendant?
Yeah, it did actually. So my grandmother was a flight attendant, back in the day, back when you had to be like 5'2" and 110 pounds or something like that, and single, of course. And we're just hearing stories from my mom about her and the travels and stuff like that. And I really wanted to be a part of that culture. I really wanted to be part of that adventure, never really knowing where I'd wake up, never really knowing where I'd go the next day or who I was flying with. Like the unknown has always been very exciting to me. And that was definitely a lifestyle that a flight attendant offers. And it was very exciting for me to be on board with that.
What was one of your favorite places to work in?
Oh, Paris, for sure. You can never go wrong with Paris. Absolutely.
That's my favorite city too. So
yes.
What was your favorite thing to see in Paris?
Just walking around. What I love about Paris is how effortless it is. It exists in its own magical,
Right. There's like always something going on, something
Yeah.
fascinating, and you're just intrigued by every little thing from the
Yeah.
floor to to the museums
bridge,
everywhere.
to the statues, everything. You can just wander around and it's just stunning. Everything is just beautiful and effortless.
Right.
Because there's some cities where they do put a lot of effort into making it look a very certain way. And so that's why I just absolutely loved it. The cuisine is great. You know, you can just sit on any sort of cafe and sip your coffee and have your croissant.
And people watch.
People watch. Yes, people watch. It's fantastic. So that's definitely.
And did you ever ask your grandmother like to give you any tips or anything when you were how to incorporate yourself into that lifestyle?
So she actually passed away when I was like 8 or 9. So when I was very, very young, but I just remember it's amazing. It's amazing the influence that stems from childhood and how much of it influences your adulthood. And that's something that I'm kind of realizing now, especially when you're asking me these questions. And so when she was, just her laugh, I remember her laugh and her energy and her, she had a very effervescent personality. So all about that is really what made me be drawn to that lifestyle, was because I loved her and I loved the stories. And so like, okay, well, I must want to do this then.
Right. Grandmothers are special. They hold a special heart, especially when you have that connection with them, and they're fascinating because you want to learn more about them, their life. And you're right about all those things influencing who we become. We don't think about it in the moment, but sometimes the choices we make as we grow older are influenced by the things that are in the back of our mind or that we've experienced or heard about.
Yeah, that's something that I'm realizing is how much of my decision making, how much of my career, how much of my success has been based on things that have stemmed from childhood to high school, even into college. And now I'm kind of thinking, I'm like, okay, well, is this what I want to do? And or how do I change to my definition of success?
And what is your definition of success?
I think it's definitely just help the most amount of people in the best way possible. When you roll out of bed today is how can I help people? How can I be a benefit to society? And if it's just picking up a spoon or a piece of trash on the sidewalk, you're helping people in a small way.
Right. Those small things that we do make a big difference. And especially when you're continuous with it, consistency in helping others and being, a valuable member of society. You spoke about like basically almost like a career change, not necessarily career change, but choosing to do something different. Where do you find the courage to say, you know what, I want to try this out. I'm not experiencing it, but I want to go for it. How do you find the courage to do it?
I think the same way that you found the courage to do this talk show. At some point, you have to just look yourself in the mirror and throw up your hands and be like, fuck it. I'm going to do this. Like, you're either going to do it or you're not going to do it. And that's kind of where I got to, is like, I don't want to look back on this period of my life and regret something that I could have done or had the opportunity to do. I had the time to do. I had the mindset and the focus to do, but chose not to.
Yeah, I think a lot of us sometimes think we have all the time in the world to do things that, okay, it can wait another 6 months, it can wait another year, or waiting for that perfect time to focus or do what we want to do rather than just, like you said, just going out and just doing it.
Yeah. And that's the hardest part, just doing it.
Yeah, just I guess Nike had a, they really killed it with that logo. Like you can't escape it.
Yeah, exactly.
So how did you decide to just do modeling?
That one, what that's so funny is it's amazing again how much of my success was fueled on the competitive nature and wanting to be relevant, because not only am I modeling here in San Francisco, but I used to model out in New York and in college. And so what I find so funny is that I was modeling because I wanted to make my name known within my family and within my little culture and stuff like that, because my siblings were known because they were smart. I wanted to be known for a different reason. I wanted to be like, I don't know, that girl in Times Square, which didn't happen, but we're getting there, right?
Right.
So when I took like a couple year hiatus and I became a flight attendant and now I'm here, I've like kind of refocused as to, all right, so modeling is something that I enjoy, but how can I also incorporate helping people into this? Because I have a platform, I have a voice, I have the opportunity to do things that not everybody can do. So how can I utilize that to be a benefit to society?
That's amazing. Yeah, when I first, I think I was introduced to you modeling a little bit back in college, but now I see that you're really focused on it and really pursuing it. And I was just like, yes, like she should be doing this. This is, you do deserve to be on. I can't wait to see you, in Times Square. I'm just like walking by, and I'm like, oh, I know that girl.
Yeah, for sure.
So how has that experience been so far for you, modeling and the industry in general? How has that been for you?
It's changed a lot. It's changed a lot since when I was first in it. And when I first moved out here and was doing the modeling out here, one of the things that I was kind of struggling with was the posing, which sounds a little silly because you're like, you're a model, your one job is to know how to pose. But in New York, it's like a very editorial, artsy, dramatic sort of style of posing. Okay. And people automatically think Zoolander when they're like, looking intently into the camera and striking some really weird poses. And out here, it's way more catalog and personality. Like they want your personality to show through. And that was very difficult for me to transition into that, because before it was like, just find some weird angle that you like and then they'll capture it. And now it's more like you have to really figure out who you are. I feel like Mufasa, like you have to figure out who you are and what you want to be, and then
have it translate in the picture.
Mm-hmm.
I never even realized that there were different types of poses, but I mean it makes sense because even if I was looking at like a clothing catalog, they are models. They're not posed the same way as what I might see in like a Vogue, whatever, Vogue cover or something, because it's a different audience that you're also you're trying to attract.
Yeah.
Speaking of modeling, and as you've said, it's changed a lot. One of the biggest thing that I've noticed, but I don't know if you've personally noticed as well, is Instagram models. Mm-hmm. Like that's a thing and a career in itself, in which people are now, even brands are now leaning towards getting someone that's like a social media influencer and using them to promote their brands and everything. How has that affected, or how do you think that has affected the modeling industry? Because they seem to be two different types of career. One seems like something you may just fall into, like Instagram model. You're just like, okay, well, I take pretty pictures. I get a lot of likes. I must get some type of attraction, and you're an Instagram model, as opposed to you're going to go and sees and you're getting hired by a brand. You have to do pictures. You have to show your face. You have to go to an interview basically to get the job, as opposed to just taking a picture.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely a lot of overlap, and especially with the pandemic, it's becoming even more so Instagram models, because brands would like to see your presence on Instagram. They want to see that you are either promoting them, or a lot of times brands will hire you out on your page. And some agencies, actually, this is where when you get signed with agencies, you have to kind of look to see who do they manage for models, because a lot of times they will manage models who have a large social media presence, and then they will in turn like kind of be the negotiator between the models and the brands and the social media platform, if that makes sense. So there's that whole
like middleman.
Yeah, there's that whole element there. And then there's also the ones that don't really focus on social media. They kind of just want to model, like they're not huge into social media. But I would definitely say that modeling and Instagram modeling are one and the same. They didn't used to be a couple years ago. When you said like I'm an Instagram model, you're like, oh, cool. But now it's kind of like one and the same. They're very interchangeable for sure. I don't call myself an Instagram model. I don't consider myself one, but yes, they're definitely, it's a profession for sure.
The both fields have kind of almost, there's a very thin line between the two.
There's
brands are utilizing social media to also enhance their brand.
Yes, so there's either a thin line or there's no line.
No.
They're definitely existing in the exact same realm.
So what if there's also the other aspect of health and fitness in the modeling industry? That's another big how do you, or in a sense, there's a feeling that some people may think, okay, if you're a model, then you must not eat, you must not, be healthy in what people will consider, eating normally, working out normally, that there's an excess of trying to do the extreme. How do you deal with that type of stigma, and what do you do to keep healthy and to be the best you can be as a model?
Yeah. What's interesting about that stigma is that it kind of really only applies to models, because it's so interesting. If there was anybody else who took their diet and their exercise as seriously as people who are in the modeling industry, there really wouldn't be a huge question about it. The thing that you kind of need, or in a broader sense, people need to understand is that this is a job. So we treat our diet and our nutrition and our, workouts as a job. And so the point where it can get a little too far into that is when you start to sabotage yourself and you start to, your relationship with working out, your relationship with food doesn't become the healthiest one. And that's something that you really have to be in tune with yourself on, of how am I viewing this food? How am I viewing this workout? How am I viewing this? Because you're the only one that can tell yourself that. No one else can really tell you your relationship with food is healthy or not healthy. And so that's definitely something that's changed a lot, is the allowance of models to have a more natural body, instead of like the 90s twiggy, or like the very 90s like twig thin frame.
Right, just one type of model rather than a representation of the population, in a sense, which I guess kind of goes back to Instagram models in a sense, trying to reach out to other people or other types of people.
Because a trend too of brands wanting to work with models who have a cause. They're interested in things. They're not just faces. They have personalities. They're interested in whatever the brand is supporting, so there's definitely a move and a shift to having these models be more of like spokespeople for the brand or for whatever they're working with.
Right. Speaking of, you brought up Twiggy. What model influences you? Like, who do you look up to and say, wow, I enjoyed watching their career, and this is something that I would like to emulate?
Yeah. Carly Kloss, actually, a little bit because I look like her, but I like her a lot because she seems very down to earth, with all of everything that she's accomplished so far. She's very down to earth, and I like the fact that she continually finds causes on her profile and her page of people that she wants to include and let us know about. Like, she's not just here's a selfie of me. It's more of, here's a cause that I want to share with you that I'm passionate about. And I really, really like her as an individual and following her on social media.
Nice. What cause are you interested in?
I'm actually interested in the San Francisco Safe House. This is a non-for-profit women's shelter in the Bay Area, and they offer services for women who are, you know, not the best backgrounds, and they might be suffering from like drug rehabilitation and things like that. But a lot of them come from like domestic abuse or homelessness or prostitution or things like that. Most of them are all sexually exploited in some way. And what I love about them, and you know, I can give you the link as well, but what I love about them is that you can go directly to their site and then buy from their Amazon wish list. So it's not just like you're giving them money, you have direct input
what they need
as to what you want to give them. Yeah, and so that's what I absolutely love about that foundation.
Oh, wow. How long have you been interested, or how long have you known of this foundation?
Actually, the last 6 months, to be quite honest.
Okay.
So I've just been kind of doing that, and then also trying to figure out partnerships that I can do with brands to you know, like the whole like 10% or whatever, like move the funds from that to
the organization. Yeah. Wow, that's really amazing. I think it takes not just talking about the cause, but also acting upon it and being a part of the solution to those issues that you're interested in.
For sure.
Again, like, I'm just fascinated with your whole career move, how you just kind of go for it. It's very admirable. What advice would you give young girls who are thinking of pursuing any career, or just are still stumbling on trying to figure out themselves, who they are and what they want to be?
Yeah. I don't necessarily have advice. I have a reflection. And it's more of, success isn't what you think it is. Success is not what you see on social media and what is presented to you. And that's the problem nowadays, is that we constantly see success as whatever we follow on social media. Like, well, this is what this person is doing, so this is what must be successful. And no one actually thinks like, well, what do I want? What is my vision of success? And I think the best tip for, you know, if I was to give 21, 22-year-old self, or like even 18-year-old Jocelyn advice in college,
right,
I would just say, you don't have to have your stuff together right now. I feel like there's such a pressure in college to like have your stuff together, to know exactly what you want. And I think I would tell any young girl who's like going into some sort of field or going into pursuing their dreams is like, take time to figure yourself out. Take time to figure out what you want. Take time to figure out like what you actually want to see happen, and then manifest it and then make it happen, because you can do it. You can absolutely do it. You just have to tell yourself you can.
Absolutely. I think we all have to find our purpose and then work towards fulfilling it. You know, to live a more fruitful and happy life is just, like you said, you know, what is it? Who am I? And what do I want to do? And be honest with yourself about it too. Yeah, a lot of us are.
Honesty part. We can lie to ourselves all day. Yeah. Like, I'm having a great time. Are you though? Are you?
Yeah. Are you though? Or is it because everyone says you're having a great time?
Yeah. And that's something I realized too. I'm like, I hated going out to clubs. The whole 2 a.m. thing with loud music. I'm like, I hated that. I kept telling myself this was a good time because everyone else is having a good time, so it must be a good time.
Oh my gosh, growing up is such a beautiful thing, to be able to learn from your past and be like, oh,
yeah,
you can learn. It wasn't supposed to be like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my goodness.
One thing I would tell young girls is like, don't try to be like me. Don't try to be like me, because you're not going to be happy. You're going to be the happiest being who you want to be.
Right.
And finding your own passions and stuff like that. I just kind of fell into what I'm doing right now, and I'm making it something I really enjoy. but I wouldn't recommend it to everybody because it's not everybody's cup of tea.
Yeah, that's so true. I think sometimes we also just see the end result of things, or like you said, you see this picture of someone and you say, okay, this person is successful, but you're not seeing the underbelly. You're not seeing what it took for them to get there. When people say, I want to be like you, okay, great. So that means you must be willing to go through the struggles that I did as well. Before, you can't just have the good. You got to go through the process and have patience enough to actually go through it. Yes. And then maybe
then maybe yes, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, I was kind of laughing about it because I think it was like yesterday I was just a hot mess express, and I was like, the irony is not lost on me that I'm a hot mess express, but then I'm about to talk to you about why am I successful? And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. This is what people don't see on social media. They don't see those moments of Carly Kloss, having her moment. You don't see that stuff. So people kind of don't know that it exists. And so
absolutely, they don't. Yeah, you don't see it, so you don't think it exists, but that doesn't mean it isn't there. And we all go through our own struggles, and we just try our best to overcome them so that we can then show our face to the world and be like, everything's okay. Oh my gosh, I really enjoyed this conversation with you. It's so nice catching up with you and seeing where you are and what you're doing. So let us know what you're up to, where you can be reached, how we can see your beautiful pictures and everything that you're up to.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. I'm just now jumping into the whole TikTok game. And you can find all of that on Jocelyn Cattley, just first and last name. So very easy to do.
All right. I'm going to be making sure I attach that so that everyone has that information. Thank you once again for joining me on today's Tuesday Talks. Until next time, everyone. Bye.
Thank you so much.